Last but not least, the question begs, John, what is next for your Boston Celtics?
Well, we'll start with the contracts because I think that really gives you a pretty clear picture as to the immediate plan. For next year, they have most of the roster locked up and brought back. Jayson Tatum, Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Marcus Smart, Daniel Tice, Robert Williams, all signed through next season. They have team options for Aaron Naismith, Grant Williams, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and Juwan Morgan. And then Malik Fitz is also technically under contract, but his amount, as well as Al Horford's, are not fully guaranteed. So basically everybody's being brought back right now, unless they're to make decline options or make a trade or cut somebody. It looks like they're just going to run it back. And I think that's the most likely plan for the immediate season. Al Horford's contract, I believe it's like 14 million of it is guaranteed. And so they could potentially, there's an option that they could maybe cut him and then re-sign him to a smaller deal. That's maybe a longer term contract. So like you get like 3 years, 30 million, something along those lines. I've seen that being thrown out. But from everything I've heard, the Celtics, obviously, Brad Stevens, they love Al Horford. They want to respect and honor the guy. And so it sounds like they're going to fully guarantee next year's contract. And so to me, that indicates they're going to run it back. I don't think they're going to, overreact and panic, because obviously you're not going to trade Tatum, Brown, Marcus Smart, who just signed his new contract, Robert Williams. Like, those four guys are your core pieces. You've drafted them. They're the guys who are going to stay. You just traded for Derek White, and I see no reason to all of a sudden panic and be like, we got to get rid of him and trade him. The guy just showed up. It's, allow him to build chemistry. He talked about that in his post-game press conference of everything's just been kind of crazy and wild. He showed up at the trade deadline, barely got to know the team, and all of a sudden they're on a crazy playoff run. And so allow him to build chemistry and really find his role in the team. I expect that to happen. And then, like I said, Al Horford, they're going to keep him, bring him back around. I see no reason why they wouldn't bring back Nesmith, Williams, and Pritchard unless they were somehow able to trade them. And so I think it's business as usual. They're going to bring back the same roster, run it back, and see what they can do next year. They're still going to be incredibly competitive roster in the East, and they're just such a young team that there's no reason to see what your internal development and year two under Ime Udoka could potentially accomplish with more chemistry, with Derek White, with Marcus Smart having a full season under his belt running the point guard, and maybe you can start to develop more of an offensive scheme around that, with Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum seeing very clearly what they need to improve upon and doing that and getting better. So I think they're just going to run it back. For the Celtics individually, what they need to improve, Jaylen Brown has to improve his handle and his vision. There was just too many times in this whole playoff run that he would dribble into double teams. He'd try to get too fancy. He'd try to, do these sequences of moves that look really great. And when he could pull them off, they were fantastic. And he'd get so much space, he'll weave through traffic. But too many times he wasn't able to pull them off, and he just simply gave the ball up on easy turnovers. He'd dribble off his own foot, or he'd go into a double team, and because he's trying to pull off some crazy between the legs or spin move, there's just nothing there for him. And so he needs to tighten that handle up so he's not dribbling it off his own feet, but also his vision has to improve. He has to know when to attack, when to take those moments, and when the double team comes to quickly get rid of it and allow a teammate to just move the ball, move the rock. For Marcus Smart, if they're going to continue to run him in that pure point guard role, I just think we need to see him expand his game more, be able to run the pick and roll effectively, be able to create a lot more for teammates in different unique ways, because he looked really good early in the playoffs, but as defenses got better, his effectiveness at the point guard spot was less. Robert Williams, it felt like he was the only player in specifically this series that showed up every single game. There was never a game in which within his role of defense, the shot blocker, the paint presence, the lob threat, he didn't show up. Outside of maybe game 2 where he got hurt, only played 14 minutes. But even then, in the 14 minutes that he did play, the Warriors had 6 points in the paint. The moment he got hurt and did not come back, they had 34 points in the paint. So Robert Williams showed up big time. But it'd be great if he could develop some sort of offensive game outside of just being a lob threat and the rare mid-range. He shot like 90% from the field on this series, but he just wasn't shooting the ball very much. And so just developing some sort of offensive game, even if that means not getting stripped every time he gets the ball down low with guards down there. That would help improve for him. For Jayson Tatum specifically, the media is really slandering him. Some of our own friends that you've seen in our group chats have been slandering him, have been making declarations about what his entire career will be and who he is going to be as a player and a person based off of these 6 games. And I just want to remind people, and before I say this, I am not comparing him to these players. I'm not saying he's going to become these players. I'm simply saying chill out, because we've seen this before. LeBron James in his first finals against your San Antonio Spurs, he averaged like 22, I think it was 22 points a game on 36% from the field. That was near identical to what Tatum did in the series. Also in that series, he averaged 4 turnovers a game, just like Tatum. And so LeBron against your Spurs, he had a terrible series. Then LeBron in his second finals against the Mavericks, he averaged 18 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists on like 45% from the field, 32% from 3, also 4 turnovers a game. That is worse than what Tatum just did in these finals. Once again, I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying LeBron had 2 terrible finals appearances, and the narratives became he doesn't show up in big moments. He can never win a championship. He's not that guy. He's not going to be the guy who can lead a team. We're hearing all those same criticisms come towards Tatum's way. And look what LeBron was able to do the next year. He improved. He got better at 3-point range. He started developing a post game and got a go-to shot. He improved and he won championships. And now all those people are eating their words. Steph Curry. Jayson Tatum is 24 years old. By the time that Steph Curry was 24 years old, he hadn't even made the playoffs. He had never made an all-star game. And Steph Curry was sort of a late bloomer, but I once again say that to say, calm down. You don't need to be making declarations about Tatum's entire career because of the 6 games that he played when he was 24 years old. Michael Jordan, obviously, it took him like 8 years to even make it to the finals. And, obviously by the time that he did, he was winning championships, but all the Michael Jordan haters love to bring up how Larry Bird and the Celtics were sweeping him and he couldn't get by the Pistons all those years and he needed Scottie Pippen and all this stuff. But it took him learning to trust Phil Jackson and the triangle scheme. And so maybe it even just means Udoka, he's a rookie head coach. Maybe over the years, as he develops more of his own coaching style and schemes, they'll get better. So like I said, I bring all that up to say Tatum will get better. Yes, he needed to play better. I'm not, letting him off the hook and not giving him accountability. He was terrible in this series. He shot like 37% of the field. That's just simply not good enough. He averaged 4 turnovers a game. That's simply not good enough. And he didn't really ever have a moment where he put his stamp on the series, but I fully expect him to grow. I fully expect him to get better, just like I expect all these guys in the Celtics to do it. And I don't think they're done yet. I think they'll be back at some point. And Draymond Green clearly believes that because he told all the players the same thing. This is something that before they actually got good this season, I had been tossing around the idea of, well, Bradley Beal and Jayson Tatum are best friends, and maybe they'll make that trade happen. And Bradley Beal want to come to Boston. For any Celtics fan, I kind of just want to put that to bed because I don't expect that to happen. If they were to do that, it would require moving Derek White and some other pieces, and I just don't think they could get the contracts to line up, and I don't think they could really get the value to line up for Washington. Once again, on Bradley Beal, I've heard zero indication that he plans to leave Washington, and so he's probably going to stay there. So I just wouldn't expect the Celtics to take some big home run swing. The most likely option that I think they're going to use the mid-level tax exemption, and that's about $8 million. Probably try and sign a point guard or maybe another wing off the bench and get somebody who can contribute big time minutes, probably a veteran because like I talked about, they're a very young team. And then after that, they have 3 trade exemptions they could use to maybe trade some picks, some lower guys, like maybe if they're not super high in Aaron Nesmith, or they can find some sort of great deal for some of these other guys, maybe they can bring in some veterans with those trade exemptions. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. I know that maybe seemed kind of boring if you're a Celtics fan and you were hoping that they would blow it up. I don't know why you would be after they made the finals, but I kind of just expect them to run it back with almost the exact same roster outside of maybe 2, 3 at most additions.
I'm with you. I think got to get someone else to initiate the offense. I think whether major minutes or at least somewhat off the bench, maybe be probably have to be a point guard. Um, and I think too maybe just growth offensively and as a coach for Ime Udoka. I mentioned the lack of off-ball movement and activity. That's easy to defend if you're not doing that. I felt like, especially I think from what you said, it seems like he really the main focus emphasis was on defense. As in his first year, and it seemed obviously it worked. So I'm guessing I would assume, okay, offense, our main priority is we need or this offseason be more just have a more creative offense that can stress people out and incorporate more off ball movement, maybe a few more set plays. I know I said this earlier for the finals. It's not an easy fix to just, especially with only a day or two of rest in between, to be like, all right, guys, we're gonna completely change our offense and incorporate all his off-ball movement, especially in the finals. So I expect them to go to the drawing table for that. And yeah, like you mentioned, Derek White came in midway through the year. Obviously, I think he needs to improve his shooting, especially his 3-point shooting.
Which he's admitted that in his post-game press conferences.
Because he was already his career numbers and averages were at least, I think, average to below average. He was like in the mid to low 30s anyway. He stayed healthy, which was a big thing too, because that was an issue in San Antonio. He couldn't stay healthy. I'm gonna knock on wood because hopefully he can do so upcoming season. Maybe Marcus Smart becomes a little bit more efficient. I do like his aggressiveness, but it can also be a bad thing at times. But hey, at least he's willing to die on his sword. I'm fine with that. But yeah, like you mentioned, other than that, you really just got to get better as a team. Maybe, obviously you mentioned earlier, Jaylen Brown improved the handle too many times. He got the ball just taken away from him, like you mentioned, via dribbling into someone or someone just taking the ball straight up away from him. Gary Payton did that a couple of times, happened other times in the series. Also in the Heat series, if you want to go back, there's the old Depot game where he had like 3 steals and like I think all 3 of them were on Brown, if not 2 of them were, and he was just literally just picked his pocket. And then obviously, Tatum decision making. But I think with a more creative offense that's less, based on Tatum kind of reacting to the defense, maybe just more proactive movement. I think that would help. And maybe even just a healthy Robert Williams. I think we forget the dude's playing on a poor knee. So maybe he's a little bit healthier and he can contribute more. There are times where I felt like he could have gotten offensive rebound or put back. But maybe the knee was bothering him and he couldn't really box out as efficiently as he maybe could have. So yeah, and also Peyton Pritchard. Maybe Peyton Pritchard can be the next. I think we mentioned in our group chat. Maybe Peyton Pritchard takes a step and can be an initiator. We already know he has moments where he can create his own shot. So maybe he can take that next step. So they don't have their first round pick because of the Derek White trade. Thank you for that, by the way. So, and like you mentioned, not much cap space. So it's going to have to mainly be internal growth for the Celtics, which I think can happen. First year of Ime's tenure, you make it to the finals. That's pretty. I mean, the only thing better is if you win the finals, obviously. But like you mentioned, relatively young team, they can figure this out. And I mean, really, if you're looking at the East next year as it currently stands, only 2 teams I'm kind of scared of. If I'm a Celtics fan, are probably the Bucks, a fully healthy Bucks team, and Brooklyn if they figure it out. If Kyrie, plays, and if Ben Simmons plays. I mean, other than that, I'm trying to think.
Miami's still there.
Oh, so. Miami. I'm sorry, Miami, but we'll see what they do because
But those are kind of the teams they played in this playoff run. Like those are the teams that you're worried about.
Yeah. So, and once again, Boston did that they had these similar offensive and turnover issues against the Heat. Didn't really have so against Brooklyn, but kind of had it against the Bucks as well. But it just became more prevalent as the playoffs went on. So I fully expect them to address it. Like you mentioned, they made an amazing turnaround mid-year already. So I expect them, and I expect this to motivate those guys too. I mean, people want to dog on Tatum for being such a Kobe fanboy, but I think in the true Kobe essence, I expect him and everyone else on this team to, just be ready. And I think Ime Udoka already had a really good message for them, which is we all got to come back better than we left. So, which I love.
On Ime
message.
Udoka. I mean, these guys need to realize Udoka was there when the Spurs lost to the Heat, and then they bounced back the next year and they won the title. And so he's been there. And I think that I'm really excited to see if he can be the guy who can guide them along that path, because he's been in a situation where he saw that exact thing happen. So